I'm Brittany.
And I'm Heather.
Welcome to Okayest Moms, the podcast.
A place to be more than just mom.
Welcome to the most requested episode of Okayest Moms, the podcast. Truly, you guys asked for it, and we are delivering with the help of our new best friend, Sex Debbie. We've kind of avoided it, but not because of the content matter. It's just that we wanted to do it well, and we have been looking for the right person to do this with. And Sex Debbie she was just an absolute gem. She is our first international guest. She's based in the UK, and she is a sex educator who walks through basically everything that sex after children brings you. Which is a lot. Like a lot. Who knew that we would have so much I don't want to say baggage, because it's just a lot of stuff surrounding it, right? We do want to say that this episode, we mostly talk about heterosexual couples. We understand that there is a lot of different kinds of sex between same-sex couples, and this is just the avenue that we went with this episode, not to say in the future that we won't be able to be more inclusive. We just didn't feel qualified to talk outside of our experience. Experience. There we go. So we do recognize that there is a blind spot here, and we're acknowledging that. And, we do what we can. Yeah. And Debbie does touch on bisexuality and transgenderism a bit in the episode. And if you go on Debbie's website and on her social media, you will see that she does touch on all areas of sex education in all of its forms. So I'm sure you could find what you're looking for with Sex Debbie, which I don't know if she loves being referred to as that, but it sticks. I mean, it's really catchy. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back with Sex Debbie. Get ready for the school year with Essential Calendar. Ready or not, the school year is just around the corner. Drop-offs, pickups, sports, lessons, activities, birthday parties. Oh, I'm tired just thinking about it. It's all coming back at once, and you're going to need a way to keep it all straight. Why not join the Essential Calendar Quarterly Calendar Club? You'll receive a new calendar automatically shipped to you every 3 months at a discounted subscription rate of 10% off. Each Essential Calendar allows you to see the entire season, all 3 months at a glance, making sure you don't overbook or underbook depending on how many extroverts you have in your family. To get 10% off your subscription to the Essential Calendar Quarterly Calendar Club, go to okayestmoms.com/essential. Our listeners know my love and devotion for a certain big box store, but you might be surprised to know that I have a new big box store in my life. Sam's Club offers the bulk pantry staples, snacks, and fresh produce you've come to expect, but it also offers a wide variety of home goods, electronics, toys, and even gas stations at most locations. You can even scan and go as you shop, which means that you are spending less time in line to check out. All you have to do is scan the barcodes as you add things to your cart, go through a special line to finish the process, and you're on your way. Right now, Okayest Moms listeners can get a Sam's Club membership for only $25, which is 50% off the regular price. Go to the link in the show notes to get your membership today. Welcome to the show, Debbie.
Hi, thanks.
Can you tell us and our audience a little bit about your area of expertise?
Absolutely. So I am Debbie. I go by the name of Sex Debbie. Definitely not Sexy Debbie. Sex Debbie specifically, just so no one's confused. Quite often I get that. Sexy Debbie, very different show. So Sex Debbie, I am a sex educator. I talk about sex to everyone, young people, adults, workplaces and brands, breaking those taboos and normalizing awkward conversations.
How did you get into this line of work? Like, how did this come to be?
So believe it or not, this is something I've always wanted to do, much to my parents' absolute dismay, as you can imagine. I've been so fascinated in sex since I was a kid. From that first lesson in biology, when you learn about reproduction and how babies are made and how everyone's falling around because everyone calls the penis something different, and the science teacher saying no, it's called the penis, and and vaginas and vulvas, and well, vulva wasn't even a word that we used then; it was vagina. Obviously, we know it's vulva now, but it was that awkwardness, that falling about, that laughing from everyone and thinking, why why are we laughing? Why have we got different names for that part of our body and not any other part of our body? And then also looking at adults. I remember I was asked at a swimming lesson if I was a virgin by one of the girls, and I was like, no, because I didn't know what a virgin was, and was like, well, I'm sure I'd know if I was one. Everyone laughed and fell about laughing, and I was really confused. I was trying to work out that what was going on, and I went to my mum, who was sat like in the leisure centre cafe with her friends. I was like, Mum, am I a virgin? What's a virgin? And she just died on the spot, like her whole face went beetroot red, and she just died. She's like, I'll tell you when we're older. And then she just like ran out of the room and like got my siblings, we just like in the car, and that was it. And it was that reaction. Oh my goodness, I've made my mum react in a certain way. Why is that? That left to home saying we're going to teach children in school sex education. Again, my parents like dying inside. Oh my goodness, and trying to talk about things but really fumbling their words about it. So it was just absolutely fascinating to me. I heard from a person I went to primary school with. So when I was under about 10, 11 years old, apparently I used to bring library books in, sort of snuck in secret, because I just was so fascinated because no one was telling us, no one was talking to us about this. And then went on secondary school. I went on to university. I did criminology and sociology, focusing on sex and society and sex and crime. And it sounds crazy, as women, we don't say this, but I just love sex because like it's supposed to be enjoyed. It's supposed to be something we enjoy, and it's fun and it's play and it's how adults play. But there's such a taboo, especially as women, to say, I love sex. Like that's all of a sudden like, oh no, like you're naughty. And obviously there's lots of different names and connotations that come with that. So breaking that down, understanding why that is, and just sort of owning it and being like, well, actually, hey, let's mix stuff up.
I love that. And I love how you were never discouraged by people's reactions around it either. I love how that just like fueled the fire more for you.
I mean, I think there's a lot of drama in me where this is going to give me some attention. I don't take away from that absolutely whatsoever. I love attention. And I think it was just, hey, this is getting me some attention. Why not carry on? And actually, sometimes maybe that wasn't the right attention. Sometimes maybe it was, really in good attention. And suddenly, a lot of people are interested, and maybe not people might be interested for the right reasons, but actually navigating that over time and working out why that is. And I think we all love the thrill of attraction and interest and being able to sort of speak our piece. And it was something that interested me so much. I sort of researched it and found out more and embraced it. And yeah, it never discouraged me. And I think because there's a little bit of rebel inside me that I just was like, right, I'm going to go for it. No one else is doing it. Why not? So yeah, fun.
It's such a great attitude because I think for a lot of people that might have induced more shame, but it shouldn't be shameful.
And that's it. I think most people, it is a shameful thing. From, as a parent, I remember my parents and other people's parents, if my siblings had, or one of us had our hands in our pants and you're fiddling around or touching yourself, obviously that feels nice. We know that as adults, that feels nice. Even if we might not want to admit it, that feels nice. But my mum would be like, get hands out your pants, or stop doing that. No, don't do that. And it wasn't necessarily her saying you mustn't do it because it's bad for you. It was her instinct of going, I don't like, oh, like, this is rude. Like that stuttering stumble, that feeling that we all have, I think, when our child asks us a question about sex, or when we have that conversation, that feeling of rising embarrassment and cringe and awkwardness. And it was sort of, don't do that, stop that, rather than saying, as I do now with my children, is I understand that feels nice, but there are ways and means. So actually doing that while we're having dinner with grandma, not the best situation. But if you've got your hands in your pants and it feels nice in your bedroom, in your privacy, absolutely fine. And we introduce sort of knocking on doors before we enter, and that consent, basically, would you like someone to know? Would you not? Okay, absolutely fine. So just sort of understanding privacy, understanding that actually it's okay and it feels nice, sort of addressing that and saying that, which is hard, I think, as a parent, because there is a shame around masturbation, especially, but actually owning it, like it's important. Masturbation is really, really, really important. It's surrounded by loads of taboo. I think we all heard at school, if you masturbate, you'll go blind, or it's like a Christian, there's lots of Christian stuff around it, and also all kinds of crazy rumors. There was always a rumor at school. Every school I've been to had this one, actually, that a girl was using a body spray bottle and the lid got stuck inside her. I think that was like those like myths and legends that go around school of girls doing it. And actually, it shouldn't be shameful. This is something that, is meant to feel good. And it's really important that we know what feels good for our body, because otherwise we are unable to enjoy partnered sex in the future. If we don't know what's right for us, It's not like we enter a sexual situation and the person we're having sex with is like, yes, I'll just enter this code and I know exactly what's going to happen, because we're all so different and we're also independent in what feels not right for us. And we need to communicate that to our partner. We're not just like a man, like you don't have a manual and go, right, this person has breasts and a vulva. They're going to like X, Y, and Z. This person has a penis. They're going to like ABC. Actually, we're all totally different. What's right for one isn't right for another. So establishing our likes and dislikes through self-touch and self-pleasure is really important. But we have to jump over that hurdle of embarrassment and shame first. And it's mad, isn't it? I had a parent of a 12-year-old come and say to me that their daughter wanted a sex toy or vibrator or something to use. And that seems like, whoa, for a lot of people. That's a big, okay. Because you're not allowed to buy them until you're over the age of 18 here in the UK. I presume something similar over there. But she was supportive of it because she understood that, okay, she was liking to touch herself. She knew what felt right. So she wanted to encourage that was a good thing. She encouraged that sort of, rather than going out and seeking it through other means and other people and trying to get your pleasure from others, understanding that you could do that to yourself. So that actually you make better decisions in the partnered sex you have. You only have it because it feels good with someone that you want it to feel with, rather than jumping into a situation because it's apparently supposed to be nice. Actually, you're going to make a more informed decision. And actually the conversation went something along the lines of, she won't be able to buy it herself in the shop, but if you're comfortable talking about what kind of touch feels nice for her and you wanted to get her something, and through that conversation, then that's definitely something that could happen. It wouldn't be a problematic thing. It wouldn't be a bad thing for her body. It's not going to cause her any physical harm. But then my other thing was, it's something that she shouldn't use every day. It shouldn't be something she uses every time she touches herself or masturbates, because then we reprogram our brain, especially at a young age, to just like one thing. And so actually it's a sort of a conversation of, it's something to have if and when on occasion, but understanding sort of a measured approach to that self-touch. But it's crazy, isn't it? Because those decisions as parents are perhaps not what our parents certainly were ever going to have a conversation about, and their parents, our grandparents, even less so. But I think all of us as parents want to break the cycle, don't we, of something as we grow up. I'm not going to do it as my parents did it. I'm not going to do it as my parents did it. We say it, but guess what? Our parents said it, and they said it to their parents, and they said it to their parents.
Right.
And sex is part of that, isn't it? So, yeah.
Well, kudos to that mom, because I feel like I would have just frozen and been like, no, I don't know. Because I don't have any basis of a conversation.
That's it. And I think that's a lot of us don't. And being honest about that. So in this circumstance, her daughter had come to her and said, I know you have sex toys, mum. Can I see them? And her mum said, oh, crikey, okay. And but that actually led to a conversation of her mum being honest and being like, yes, I do. These are what I have. And these are what they're for. But they're mine. Like, they're not for sharing. But also, actually, if you don't know, saying, I never had this conversation with my mum. This conversation I'm going to find really tricky. Can you just give me time so we can learn together? Or how about we look online together so that they're not doing their own research, because goodness knows what you're going to see on the internet. It is wild. So actually having that time together, and it might not be the parental bonding experience that you're expecting with your child, but actually being able to sort of go on the internet and look for something and having that conversation with them that is safe and measured, and perhaps then getting a book or something that you can work with that child and say, look, I don't know either. This is new territory for me as well. I never had this conversation with my mum, but I want you to be different. I want you to feel empowered with this knowledge. I want you to feel safeguarded, because actually you're not going to jump into situations that maybe you would otherwise. So let's, look together at a solution. And I think honesty is the best policy. If you pretend that, oh yeah, I'm fine, I'm totally a cool mum, I've got this, actually, and you haven't, they're going to see right through it, and they're like, I am not going to ask her again. That was clearly uncomfortable for her. And so kids know, they can feel your emotions, can't they? They can feel when you're upset. They know if this is uncomfortable. They know if it's awkward. Just like I remember my mum running out of that cafe when I asked her what a virgin was. That stayed with me forever. And I think that sort of is a lot of things, isn't it?
I love how you said we all want our kids to feel empowered and safe. And I think getting a jump start on these conversations is one way to do that. And I think it's very important. So the majority of our audience is mothers. Can you talk a little bit about the sexual relationship with your partner after having kids and how it changes?
Yeah, absolutely. So the sexual sort of journey, I think, as a parent starts before you're even pregnant for a lot of us. That trying to conceive type area, we are all told in reproductive health, in sex ed, whatever sort of sex education you had at school, if any, we are told a penis goes into a vagina and a sperm finds an egg and you get pregnant. Like, that is it. So when it doesn't happen for you, like it doesn't happen immediately, and you're thinking, well, oh my God, it's like when you have your first unprotected sex, you're like, oh my God, this is gonna I'm gonna get pregnant immediately. Actually, that doesn't happen for a lot of people. There's fertility treatment, there's ovulation, there's understanding. Some people can go with the flow. I am one of those people. I was very, very lucky. We got pregnant immediately. And that was that. And I have 2 wonderful boys. But that isn't the same for everyone. So all of a sudden, sex becomes like a function. It becomes like a real rigmarole of things you have to really think of and map and take your temperature. And it might not necessarily be about arousal or desire. It might just be about, actually, this is when we've got to get it done. Let's get it done. So straight away, sex becomes something different, doesn't it? Straight immediately, before the sperm has even met the egg, sex has become a different type of interaction than it would have been before. So it's trying to keep that play element in, even when you're trying to conceive. Even when you're thinking, do I have to lie upside down with my legs in the air after this? Even when you're thinking about all these things in your head that don't make it sexy, actually play, laugh, and have fun is really important, because that's why we should be doing it. I realize that sex isn't pleasurable for everybody, but it should be. The main reason that most of us should be having sex is because it feels good. But that's hard for everyone. That's not always the same for everyone. And that's why we have an orgasm gap, which I will talk more about in a bit. So trying to conceive is a start. Obviously, you get pregnant, and then we have a lot of partners who don't want to have sex with a pregnant body because they're worried of poking the baby in the head, worried about pregnant mothers with big tummies and worrying about positioning. We've got people that can't have sex during pregnancy because of bleeding or different types of symptoms. We've got hormones, which are bad enough when you're not pregnant. And then all of a sudden, when you're pregnant, you either are horny as hell or you don't want anyone near you. So all these things happen. Then, my God, you manage that. Your body's a different thing than it was before. And you have a baby. You've got perhaps tearing. You've got stretch marks. Your breasts are perhaps milk. You've got so many different things going on. And in the UK, it's after you get your 6-week check. And there's so many partners after the 6-week check who are waiting at home, thinking like, how's your 6-week check? And actually, that's not realistic. Like, that is a guide for the doctor to check your healing. That is not a guide for when you can start having sex again. We are all different. We are all sort of our own beast. So actually remembering that when your bleeding is stopped is when your cervix is closed. That will stop infection. Remembering that we have scar tissue and it feels different and it takes time. Remembering that consensual sex is reversible. You can stop at any minute. Just because you have said you are interested or just because you've started doesn't mean you have to go through with the whole thing, the whole situation. And the other thing is really important is when I talk about sex at any point, sex is an umbrella term. Sex isn't just penis entering a vagina. That might be sexual intercourse, penetrative vaginal sexual intercourse. But sex is absolutely any kind of sort of physical enjoyment, play, and touch, because 80% of those with a vulva need some sort of clitoral stimulation to reach climax or to feel pleasure. And so penetrative sex is only benefiting usually heterosexual men, I hate to say. So actually thinking about what is sex to us, there's a doctor here called Dr. Karen Gurney who's amazing. And she says how it's not starter, main, dessert. It's not kissing, foreplay, sex, which I think a lot of us sort of fall into that habit of. We fall into that sort of rotation of bish, bash, bosh, done. Man ejaculates, end of. And actually, it's not that. It should be a buffet of a bit of everything here and there. You can start here, you can have a bit of this, go back to here, do a bit of that. And actually, that continuous play and enjoyment and stop, start, and going from one thing to the other and enjoying the ride. It's not all about orgasm and climax. Actually, it's about the pleasure that you feel throughout. So thinking of that, especially obviously after having a baby and tearing and how your body changes, is really important. So the different types of play. And then obviously having kids. I mean, crikey, it's a absolute game changer, as you know. And it's that there's different elements I talk about, which are time. Who has the time? I think Everyone says, who has the time? I mean, you can't even have a conversation with your partner half the time, let alone sex. So actually, finding time and prioritizing time are really hard. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, pretty much.
You've got touch. I think a lot of us feel just touched out. We've been touched by kids all day. Little hands wanting, pulling, touching. And I don't want someone else's hands on me once they've gone to bed. I need some space. Like I need to just reset my brain of who I am and understanding that that might be a window of putting kids to bed, window for you to find you again before being touched. Or it might mean different types of touch. If you've been touched by children all day with little hands, then little sort of strokes and pats and touches are going to feel really horrible and make you feel uncomfortable. Whereas maybe being held in sort of strong holds or long touches, long periods of time, actually that touch is going to feel different and perhaps a bit more comforting, enjoyable. And talking about comfort, obviously, does it feel good? Like, as part of your body changing, as part of anything perhaps not being right with your vulva, any tearing, does it feel right? Is there anything that you really need to be talking to your doctor about going forward? If it feels different, why? Are you okay? Is everything all right? And actually, moving forward, there's a lot of changes with our bodies. Do you feel ready for a regular sexual relationship after having children? I think that's the main question for a lot of people. Am I ready? Not necessarily. And actually, quite often we're just told by doctors, oh, you just need to relax and use lube. But actually, it's so much more than that, which we'll talk about in a bit. And mind, our brain is full of what's called the mental load, which you might have talked about before. We've got all of life's admin as heterosexual women in our brain. And it's full of the glue that holds the family together. So you might have
which is not sexy at all.
And it says, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And they will do a marvelous job. But you've had to think to tell them to do it. And sometimes it's just easier to do it yourself. And so that no one wants to be, I always say, no one wants to be bent over, going at it, thinking, I need to do the washing for tomorrow. No one wants, that's not where our brain needs to be. Our brain needs to be present and in the moment. But that's very hard as a mother, as a parent. Obviously, body image obviously speaks for itself. Your body's changed through pregnancy. And then the last one is identity. I think a lot of mums are all-day mum. They might then be a wife. They might be then someone in their job, whether it's a doctor or a teacher or whoever in their work environment. And they just want to be them. So I always say, I play netball. I love netball. I'm not sure I'm very good at it, but I play it. And actually I'm just Debbie. I'm no one's mum, I'm no one's wife, no one's expecting anything of me, no one wants a snack, which is, I'm actually me, and it shows it gives me great confidence and makes me feel good. So that my 6 points I really look at are time, touch, comfort, body, identity, and mind. They're the real sort of areas, and they're all affected. And that, I'm afraid, doesn't go away as they grow up. Once you have teenagers or older children, your evenings are gone. So where you might have sex in the evening, you have children who are staying up as late as you, and that window of opportunity is gone. And actually conversations have to be had so that they know their parents still have sex, which is really uncomfortable for a lot of people. So yeah, it's a roller coaster, which literally never ends. I'm sorry to say. And that's with everything, I think, is parenthood, isn't it?
It's the truth. I would almost even throw an energy in there too, because so often, like, I wouldn't mind it, but I just don't have the energy. Like, I often joke that, like, if we've sat down to watch TV or something and then my husband tries to make his advances, I'm like, you let me be horizontal for too long and I cannot, like, rally enough energy to do this. I just need to go to sleep.
And that's timing, isn't it? It's finding it at the right time, prioritizing a time that works where you're not completely zapped, like mentally and physically. So how can
you miss the window? Sorry.
Yeah. But actually, what can you do with that window? So with that time element, I always say, when we prioritize time, it doesn't have to be sexual. We think that to be intimate actually means to have sex, and it doesn't necessarily. Sometimes if you were to spend, well, speaking personally, if I was to spend a whole evening with my partner, laughing, joking, playing a game, talking, catching up, actually that feels so much more intimate, so much more enjoyable than sex sometimes. And that moment It might not result, that say date night, that might not result in sex that night, but that will result in better sex in the long run because we have connected and we're feeling each other's energy. We're opening communication lines so that we can talk about what feels good when we come to sex in the future. And it ignites our subconscious desire. It makes us feel attracted to that person again, remember why we're with that person again, and sort of opens up all the floodgates, really.
So what are some things women can do if they are unsatisfied with their current sex life in their relationship?
So my number one thing isn't perhaps what people expect to start with, but it is lube. Lube is amazing. Good lubricant. Everybody should have in their bedside drawer, table, whatever you have. Before sex toys, before sexy underwear, before anything, lube. Now, lube is amazing because it increases comfort, it increases sensitivity, and therefore increases pleasure. You can find lubes that are sort of glycerin-free or paraben-free. Some people find that they have bad reactions to lube because obviously our vagina within our vulva has a delicate pH balance that can react to things that are put inside it. So a lot of people might get different infections from using different products. Totally understand. So look for perhaps a lubricant that is glycerin and paraben-free, that's maybe a bit more organic. If your vagina's pH is A-OK, go crazy on sort of the drugstore, whatever stuff that you have. But obviously, if people say, oh, I've tried it before and it's not for me, just look at those ingredients. So try and find it glycerin-free. That's usually what I'd say. So lube, first and foremost, because actually if you've got scar tissue as a mum and you've had any tearing, that's going to help that make more comfortable. Actually, quite often we think, oh my goodness, I have vaginal dryness because I'm not. Is that because I'm not turned on? We have some partners that go, oh, you don't need lube with me, babe. Actually, our vaginal lubrication is hormonal. It has nothing to do with you, babe. So actually, it's sort of a hormonal balance, and that's what causes it, and sort of stage of arousal that our body's in. It's not necessarily how good or bad our partner is. So see it as a teammate, as a companion, not as something that you need because something's gone wrong. Actually, it's really good. And then it's just that connection, understanding that sex isn't just a physical act. It's so much more than that. It's our understanding. So all that conversation we've had earlier about upbringing and understanding what sex is, and those conversations, that has an impact on what we think of sex is. Sometimes we might think it's just for, if we're in a heterosexual relationship, it's just for a man. It's not for a woman's pleasure. We're really behind with science and social understanding of women's pleasure. It's just an act, it's a performance almost. I remember being a teenager and thinking, if you've got the boyfriend, if you've got the partner, actually, wow, you're the success. And it wasn't anything, it's nothing to do with that, but that's how in society we see life going ahead, isn't it? Boyfriend, marriage, partner, babies, house, It's all these tick lists of things we're supposed to be doing as success. And actually, no, do what's right for you and engage in what's right for you, not what's right for your partner. Sex shouldn't be a performance. Of course, sometimes it might well be a performance and go crazy, really enjoy yourself. But it shouldn't be a performance for the other person every time. It should be a mutual, pleasurable experience. So take that focus away from the orgasm. Take that focus away from I'm not orgasming every time, or I must make them come or orgasm or whatever. Actually put the focus on, does this feel good? Am I enjoying this? Really simplify it down. Do you like this? We think, oh my God, how do we talk about sex with our partner? We can talk about sex with our girlfriends, but we can't necessarily talk about it with the actual person we're having sex with a lot of the time. But actually using those guidance and communication during sex, by moving their hands to the right place, or making the right noises. Never, please stop faking orgasms. Otherwise, we're going to be giving the wrong messages out. They could be going for it and you think, I'll just get this over and done with. I am done. Fake an orgasm. And they're like, yeah, look at me. And then next time they're going to start doing it again. You're thinking, oh God, they're doing that again. And you're stuck in an awkward cycle. And so actually, parenthood and motherhood is a great opportunity. If you're stuck in any sort of sexual ruts of things being the same again, so say, actually, maybe it's my hormones since becoming a mum, or maybe this has changed, but I don't really like that anymore. And, I really would like to try this, because sex changes throughout our lives, just like we change. Like we have all changed becoming a parent. It changes us. No matter how much you say, I am totally going to say the same, motherhood is not going to change me. It will, I think, naturally. And sex changes as well throughout our lives. Hopefully none of us are having the same sex we are having as teenagers. hopefully we're having sort of better sex or different sex, and our likes and dislikes change. And so parenthood is great if you're stuck in a bit of a sexual rut of saying like, oh, since having the kids, or since the kids have been older and doing this, I'm finding I'm not enjoying that so much, but I would like to try this or this position. My body feels changed, but I really feel feels good. So whether it's a position or a type of touch or something you'd like to explore, then actually it's a great opportunity. And saying, oh, if I listen to a podcast like this and there's absolutely crazy British sex woman was on there and she said, try this. And even if I haven't suggested it in this sort of section, just make it up. If there's something you want to try, say I said it. And actually that gives you a great opportunity. I do workshops for couples and all sorts, parents, friends. I have lots of like girlfriends come with a bottle of wine and we have a good old evening chatting about stuff. But so many partners then waiting at home when they get home to be like, what does she say? What does she say? And that's a great opportunity to be like, oh, right. Well, actually, I'd like to try this. Or I'd like to do this exercise. I do this big mapping exercise on my website. It's sort of, you can get these exercises. We download these exercises of how you can communicate with each other and try and find your likes and dislikes and work through them together. And it gives you an opportunity to talk about something in a more structured way that you perhaps would find awkward. It gives you a bit more structure, a bit more a better approach to it, rather than just being like, well, I don't like that in sex anymore. What do you like? And then it's sort of everyone's feeling a bit awkward and tense and you don't really know how to say it. So yeah.
Oh, I love that. We'll link that in our show notes on your website.
Thank you.
Okay. What if the partners have different satisfaction levels or needs in a relationship? I mean, this is kind of related, and I think your mapping exercise answers that question, but do you have anything else to add?
So the biggest reason a lot of couples go to a sex therapist is what sexual desire is not matched, or one person wants it more than the other. And actually, in my opinion, that's wrong. If you delve deeper, it's more than that. That we've all got the same sex drive, really. We've all got the same abilities, libido, everything. But a lot of us, there's the dual control sort of method or theory. It says that we've all got different brakes and accelerators to that drive. So some things might really turn us on and, rise that arousal and desire, and some things might really break it. And I think as stereotypical heterosexual female mothers, we have a lot more brakes than we have perhaps accelerators sometimes. And it's recognizing those brakes, recognizing what's putting the brakes on, where that's coming from, and trying to work out what our accelerators to desire are, and trying to make sure we communicate those to our partner. How sexy is it if you came home and the washing is done, the house is clean, the kids are put to bed, dinner is made, like all of a sudden I have way more space to be turned on than if you just say, oh, I'm gonna kiss you here and do this to you. Actually, that's great, but can we just crack on with dinner first? Like, do you know what I mean? So actually understand that
chores are the best foreplay. Chores. That's all I need from you.
If those brakes are taken off, those hindrances and relieved from our brain, actually we've got more space in our mental capacity, in our psychology to want sex. We've got more space, more time. It's really relieved things. And actually recognizes the work you perhaps do if you're a mother, because we're likely to do more of that household labor. And it recognizes that your partner sees it, they help with it, and that gives you more opportunity for sex. And I wish I could say it was something sexy. I wish I could say, go and buy this sex toy and you're going to have the best sex ever and it's going to be amazing. No. It's not realistic.
No, literally just unload the dishwasher. That's
so many people would be like, yeah, oh my God, yeah. Like, it's so true. So that, I think that's something to be aware of when we talk about desire, is actually we've all got sexual desire, unless perhaps you're asexual, or perhaps you're struggling with a sexual dysfunction, a problem. But actually, we've all got the same desire. We've just got different brakes and accelerators to that desire, and recognizing what they are is really important.
So if I had to bet, this is probably the number one question you get asked the most. What, in your experience with your clients, has been the average amount of times, let's say per week, married couples with children are having sex?
So I hate this question. I absolutely hate this question. And I'll tell you why. It is completely irrelevant. Absolutely, completely irrelevant. And yet we cannot help it. From teenagers and onwards, we are comparing ourselves to everyone else when it comes to sex. Who's had it first? Who's done what? What base have they got to? It is completely irrelevant. What matters is the quality of the sex you are having, not the quantity. I'd like to think it's better to have good sex some of the time than really average sex a lot of the time. Because actually, what are you going to remember? Good sex. What increases your sexual confidence? Good sex. What increases your body confidence, your endorphins, what makes you feel great, what connects you to your partner? Good sex. So actually, if you're having that, but less than those that are having average sex, much better. Like, go for the good sex over the average sex. So it really is personal to you. And if you don't feel that's enough in your relationship, then you and your partner need to have a conversation and a look at that and actually address, am I enjoying the sex we are having? If not, why not? Let's move forward with this. And I think, and looking at it, what our expectations are. I think porn has a lot to say when we look at our expectations for sex, because again, we look at that performance, especially from women or those with vulvas and people with a female body. It's a very much performance. We don't see female pleasure a lot in mainstream porn. So actually, why is that? Again, it's a reinforcement of this really old idea that sex is for men more than women, which it isn't. It absolutely isn't. Sex is really enjoyable for women. We just need to understand how to have it in a way that feels good. And that's through masturbating. That's through understanding that the clitoris isn't just a little nubbin. Actually, the clitoris is a huge wishbone shaped sort of organ of our part of our vulva, and it can be really stimulated. Nipples can give you orgasms. There's so many different parts of our body that are incredible. So really embracing that and not being shamed for it. I think as women, often you get this shame when it comes to sex, you're called names, and you can't do right for doing wrong, because if you're seen as sexy, then it's like, oh wow, yeah, you're this and that. But then if you're seen as having too much sex, then you're a slag or a slut or a whore, or all these stupid names that come up. But then as a mother, we don't see sexy mothers in society. We don't see mothers, unless you're an A-list celebrity with your own personal trainer, in which case, God love you. But it's not, to be a good mother, you can't be you can't be sexy, because all of a sudden then you're, seen as derogatory. So actually, what can we do right? One minute you're seeing sex sells, people are in their lingerie selling a can of Coca-Cola, and then the next minute you're seeing, oh, they're a terrible person because they got a boob job. It's like, oh my goodness, which one's right? And that is really, really difficult for women. But actually understanding that and understanding why that is, where those social messages come from. If you ever feel uncomfortable, if you ever feel yourself going to call someone a name or thinking that, sit for a minute before you do and think, why do I think that? Where has that thought come from? Is it from my upbringing? Is it from somewhere I've seen? Why am I judging that person in that way? And actually, if we just take that extra minute to think about it, you can see that you've absorbed a lot of sort of patriarchal messages from society and social history that are still very prevalent in today's society in the Western world. Sorry, that got a bit like sciencey there, didn't it?
No, you're right on target. You remind me of the Barbie monologue, and I'm here for it.
Brilliant.
So obviously, I'm sure our listeners, and you said earlier, you are from the UK. What cultural differences have you noticed between how the US and the UK talk about sex?
Well, they're not as different as I don't think as you perhaps realize. Obviously, there's a lot of Christianity influence within our societies. So we have a lot of heavy preference for monogamous relationships and marriage within. So that's really connected within both the US and the UK. We've got this real background for actually that there's a right way to be in a relationship and there's a right way to have sex, and that isn't really true. That's just a belief that our societies have been put on a foundation. The foundation of our societies has sort of grown from is that Christianity, and that all of a sudden, it's being challenged now. We've got a lot more sort of polyamorous sort of groups and societies and lifestyles, which are incredible in showing us that actually doesn't have to be one way or no way. But we're fighting against a really hard stream with that. And I think all of us, even I am bisexual, but I present as heterosexual. I'm married to a man. We have 2 boys. I present very easily as heterosexual. But when I say I'm bisexual, even parents around here locally, the reaction is huge because it's not the expected route for us, right? So I think we all have that sort of heavy influence from Christianity. And that's why cheating and infidelity is always such a like huge taboo. And oh my goodness, because actually you're supposed to get married, you're supposed to stay with that person for the rest of your life. And that doesn't happen. I mean, divorce rates show that actually that's going the other way now for a lot of people, and things are changing. So exploring that, I think, both of sort of our cultures need to do in the US and the UK. And that obviously that religious belief system, we're finding pushback here now quite a lot, like you have been, with sort of abortion rights and parental responsibility and tricky sex ed stuff, which is really hard. I find it really difficult as a sex educator who goes and talks to people about sex and in this way, in this pleasurable way, when you're being told, you know, that's wrong, and a lot of people pushing back against it. Really hard to navigate, really hard to sort of look and say, well, look, no one's going and doing it on purpose. No one's getting pregnant by accident on purpose. There's so much shame and everything around it, the rest of it. And actually, why is it always women or, you know, those that get pregnant that seem to be punished disproportionately? Why is it always on us? No one's sort of following up with the sperm side of things. So I find that, and I think you've obviously got it a lot heavier at the moment. Those laws have really been passed your way, but they're starting to come here now, which is really interesting. And I think if you look back through history, social history, we have like peaks and troughs, we have waves. So when we go really like far left with something and new beliefs and new systems, there's always going to be a backlash, and that backlash is always going to come. And I think we've had a big peak with sort of trans and drag and gay marriage and all kinds of fabulous like progression, and so it's going to be backlash to that. So it's just sort of riding that wave, but it is hard. It's so hard. And then socially, I think here in the UK, we've got a bit of a reputation, like back in the day, of like secret fetishes and kinky, and we like it was sort of a bit more of a like a sort of stiff upper lip, and no one knows about the brothels and things like that. And there is a sort of reputation there, I think, in British history, but obviously American history is much more modern, isn't it? So you don't go quite back as far as ours, and you have different approaches to sex work, especially because you have a lot of porn made there, and you have brothels that are like we went and did 3 weeks in California and Las Vegas, and I just cannot get over the fact that driving on like the roads and there's a big sign like brothel this way. That's like in our country,
super common, but it does exist.
I mean, that to me was just the craziest thing, because here it's like a secret door. Like I've ever known a brothel, it's like a taxi driver sort of saying, "All right, there's one there," and you sort of knock on the door, secretly go in, or you call a number and they tell you the address. There's never a flashing sign, which was very exciting. But otherwise, I think actually we're more similar than perhaps we realised. I think there's different experiences with alcohol here. So we drink a lot younger, I think, than in the US. So our drinking age is 18, but it is super common to start drinking a lot younger than that. And parents normalise it, and we drink at home. Which can obviously result into some interesting decisions or choices when it comes to our first sexual experiences. I know for a long time we had a lot of teenage pregnancy, but actually our rates are much higher, like better now, and actually young people are having less sex now than they were in our day, which is really interesting. But I think a lot of them correlate. I think some of the extreme views that we see in the media from America, perhaps slightly more extreme than ours, but obviously it's what we see in the media, and that's really, really tricky. But no, I think within the Western world, it's all very similar. But it's interesting, yeah.
Debbie, thank you so much for joining us. We have been asked to do this topic so many times, and we just have kind of shied away from it just because we didn't know how to do it the right way. And you were the perfect person for this. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Please, people should never be worried or afraid of these questions and these conversations. I think what is important and what we see today is everyone's experiencing it in different ways. Just like all mum life, just like all of these sort of crazy roller coaster of parenthood that we're all riding and screaming. So actually, yeah, it's really common. And actually, the more we talk, the more we normalize, and the more we break taboos. So go for it.
Can you tell our audience where they can find more information about you?
Absolutely. So my Instagram is @sex.debbie. My website is sexdebbie.com, and yeah, go crazy, go find me.
Thank you so much.
If you like what you just heard, and we hope you do, you can find more of us online at www.okayestmoms.com. We're also on all social media platforms, Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Okayest Moms Blog. Or if you want to, you can send us an email at hey@okayestmoms.com.